welcome everyone to the Firestone Williams Report for Wednesday, July something. And here we are today with Scott Williams and myself, Nick Kellet here from StoneShare. And, beautiful weather here in Ottawa. You got any plans for holidays this summer, Scott?
I'm just taking some time off from our massive move this last weekend.
Oh my gosh, you moved houses.
Yes. So it's
you're a suburban guy now.
I am. I get up every morning and water my lawn, walk the dog.
No way.
Yeah, of course. So it's
I don't strike me as Mr. Suburbia.
No, I'm just joking.
Oh, you don't do that?
No.
The grass is dying.
Exactly. No.
How's the new house though? Really?
It's good.
Seriously.
It's just it was a tiring move, and I'm just looking forward to taking some time off and actually being able to enjoy it now.
Now you're out in Canada, and I understand you have like an attic, and you have an office in your attic now. Is that right?
No. It's just on the second floor. I have a massive open loft space.
Okay, you have a loft.
Yeah.
All right, and that's where your office is.
Yep.
So you're into the virtual space, virtual thing with Ibero, and you don't really have a central office. You have a bunch of people working for you, but they're all over.
Yeah, we refuse.
The place.
We refuse to have an office.
Okay.
It's been 7 years, and to this day I will never have an office.
So do you have to walk any stairs to get to the office, or is it the same level as the master bedroom?
I come out of my master bedroom, I walk down 3 steps, 3 feet, then up 3 steps to the other side of the house.
All right, and of course you're shaved and showered and shoe-shined and everything, right? And in the suit too, right?
The tie? Suit and tie, yeah, absolutely,
okay.
Of course.
And other lies, right? Okay.
But, yeah, so no, the thing with Iberos has always been, it's just like I said, I mean, from the virtual perspective, we use, for our phone system, we use Blue Arc. And it's seamless. I can pick up the phone, dial an extension.
The only thing you're lacking, I think, for Ibero is a media wall.
A media wall.
Yeah. Did you not read Quantum Entity, Book 1?
Oh, sorry.
Every wall is supposed to be. Oh my God.
You're fired.
As co-host. That's
Look,
it.
It's early. What do you want? No, it's
early.
I have massive big screen TVs on the wall.
Okay, so what you need is media walls, quantum entities, and so you can drop in and see what your colleagues are doing as if you're physically there.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's get with it.
Then I can keep an eye
up on the tech.
Whether or not they're sitting there in a suit or their boxer shorts.
All right. Anyway, we're joined by Nick Kellet from StoneShare. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you both.
So tell us a little bit about StoneShare, how long you've been there, what you guys are doing. I know you've had amazing growth.
Sure. Well, we were actually founded as a company in 2007. My business partner, Keith Carter, and myself bought into the company a year later.
Wow.
And we have another partner, Pierre Cleroux, who's actually quite the entrepreneur in the Ottawa area.
Right.
The company has always focused on SharePoint, which is a Microsoft technology, and it's really been in strong demand. So we had very good timing. And we're providing a lot of services to public and private sector companies in Ottawa and Toronto, especially in the area of electronic content management, websites, intranets, extranets, and the like.
Okay, now, nobody has any idea what you just said.
Right.
All right, so, let's start with SharePoint and Microsoft. I was saying just before the show began that, Microsoft's kind of cool again. If you wait long enough, maybe everything, even old suits will come back in fashion, right? So how did that happen to Microsoft, and how did you ride that wave?
Sure. So it's like a pendulum. I think you've got it, you hit the nail on the head. Microsoft is definitely very cool again.
Yeah.
They've been innovating for quite some time, and nobody was really paying a lot of attention, I think.
Right.
What's happening right now is that there are a lot of people who want good mobile devices, so they want to get their business information or their personal information on their phones and on their tablets. They want to be connected wherever they are. So, I mean, you're a great example of that, Scott, with your virtual office.
Right.
And we do a lot of that as well. And so all these technologies that people are used to with Word documents and PowerPoints and Excel and using a web browser have been integrated by Microsoft together. So suddenly what's cool about Microsoft technologies is it's very easy to share your information and to find it no matter what you're using and where you are.
Okay, so you're up against some tough competition, though. I mean, I use Google Calendar, I use Google Docs, I use Dropbox. There's Box. I mean, there's probably a lot that I don't know. How do you compete against all of that alternative technologies from some pretty big companies?
Absolutely. So obviously Microsoft, is a huge corporation. They've invested very heavily, and so they've been in this space for a very long period of time, and that obviously gives them some advantages. I think the key benefit is we focus heavily on what we call user adoption. So these technologies can be very complicated often, not from an implementation or a technical perspective, but just how people will use them. And so what's really great about SharePoint, for example, about Microsoft in general, is that people go to work and they use Office Suite. So they might use Word documents and PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So that gives Microsoft an easy hook into into a product like SharePoint, which these other organizations don't have. And so that really benefits them. And I think that's probably why Google Docs doesn't have the traction that SharePoint has.
And one of the things as well is, like, Bruce, you mentioned, like there's, yes, Google Docs and Dropbox and things, but I mean, SharePoint goes far beyond that. I mean, can you explain to me this whole sort of concept now of information management, how it pertains to companies from small to the largest enterprise?
Absolutely. So let's just take our personal computers as an example. We probably have tens of thousands of files that are sitting around, and photos and things that we want to manage that we don't know where to find. We don't know which one is the right version. If we make copies, if we want to share them with our friends and our family or with our colleagues, it's very difficult to organize this massive amount of information, and it's just getting harder. So SharePoint is one example, is a way of helping to manage that. It's a technical way of doing that. I think you need to do much more than that. And so our bread and butter is actually working with companies to figure out, how they're going to find their information, what the best way to store it is, and so on. But SharePoint makes it very easy to do that. And again, I think your point about what's cool with Microsoft is a fantastic one, because this information, if properly organized in SharePoint, can be easily shared on a mobile device, on a laptop. It can be viewed through the browser, and that's actually really compelling for people.
And then one of the things that I guess is in your realm as well that's really important in this day and age, just, in reading up on everything SharePoint and, try to understand the whole sort of concept behind it, is that there's a lot of other aspects, I guess, that companies need to take into consideration, like security is a big one, right? The concept of securing what people now refer to, and I'm using air quotes, like, the corporate assets, so to speak, as it pertains to information, is not something that, say, Dropbox can do in that way. So can you explain that? Like, how?
Yeah, can you expand on that? Because, as a user of Dropbox, not yet a client of yours, so,
right.
Convert me.
Okay. Fair enough. So that's great. One of the things that we do is we help organizations share their content securely on mobile devices, for example, or with their partners in the client.
Okay, will it work just on an iPad as it will on my iPhone?
Yes, it will. So one of the benefits of SharePoint is it's what you call a platform, which means that you get a core set of abilities with it, but many people are on the market who are selling add-ons. And so, for example, we work with partners such as Caligo or SharePlus to provide mobile device applications that they simply download, and now you can securely view your documents or your images on your device. Yeah, it's great, and it's everywhere. It's pervasive.
Yeah, and again, like, the security is there to make sure that no one can steal those documents.
Exactly.
And access them without
exactly. And so you have a conversation with the business, and you say, what information are you willing to share? How are you willing to share it? Who gets to see it?
It's like those circles on Google Plus, right?
Yes.
Friends and acquaintances and colleagues and whatever.
So I actually love that image.
Cool.
So from Google Plus, I think that's a really great, very iconic way of analogy. Looking at
those
that.
circles.
Those circles is a wonderful concept.
They did get that right. Yeah. I think Google Plus got a lot wrong, but they got that right.
They did, yes. Absolutely right. So what we do with our customers is we say, okay, you have a mobile device. Let's help you manage your information on there. Let's help you create an intranet so that you can share information with your colleagues. Let's help you create an extranet so you can share information with your partners. Let's make sure that you're compliant. So if you are subject to some sort of a legal case, or if you have some litigation or ATIP requirements, or whatever the case might be, let's make sure we can run reports and make sure you're safe.
And that's a really big sticking point as well, right? Is that now I think a lot of companies don't realize, even at times. In fact, like, one of our clients didn't realize this up until a few months ago when we were building, we built a new brand for them and a new site, and there was, the concept of where files are residing and things. And I don't think people realize sometimes the legal ramifications of their digital content. And it's where it resides, how it's accessed, and those things. And can you explain to me, like, I guess sort of the legal parameters around this and what companies maybe should be looking for if they're sitting in front of their laptop listening to the show right now, is that what would they perhaps not realize that they should be doing?
Absolutely. So Dropbox is a great example, and I love that service and I use it personally, but that information is stored on United States servers, for example. It's not necessarily clear how they're managing that information, although I'm sure they're keeping it secure. A lot of Canadian companies and certainly the federal government are not able to store their information for any reason, for any amount of time on a U.S.-based or non-Canadian-based server. So that's already an issue. We're talking with partners.
And your servers are?
Well, we have servers in Canada. So when we host information, it's served in a data center actually based in Ottawa. But we also have some hosting that's available in U.S. Soil, and so we make a conscious decision which information goes where.
So you put up a wall between the two.
Absolutely right. So really what it comes down to is what services you offer and what information gets managed on the services, and we clearly differentiate what goes where, and we have those same conversations with customers. So I think one of the things that we do very well at StoneShare is we try these things out. We look into the sort of ramifications, what are the pros and cons, what are the benefits, what are the costs, and then we understand what those are, and we're able to explain those back to customers.
We hear a lot about very large companies who obviously, you would think anyway, pay a lot of attention to security getting hacked. Right. What's different about StoneShare? I mean, why is Yahoo getting hacked and others, and you're not?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we benefit from is SharePoint as a platform is a very secure one. So it's been built with security in mind by Microsoft. It's been extensively tested. So we are able to rely on those built-in capabilities. We also do what we call hardening exercises. So whenever we work with the customer, there are a number of things that we're able to turn off or lock down that reduce what you call the attack surface and makes it less prone to hackers even seeing elements of it and then certainly getting at it. But we work very closely with our customers' IT teams to make sure that security is properly contained. And one of the things we do comes back to that earlier point I made. When we create an extranet for them and we make it publicly available or a website, we have a conversation about what content goes in those areas. And there's a lot of things that just will not go in an extranet or won't be available on a mobile device because of concerns like that. And I think the challenge for a lot of these really big organizations is they feel they have to share information there, right? They have customers who want that information, and they maybe at a large scale have difficulty managing that information.
I have a question about security, because this is something that, it's the ever-moving target in today's IT environment. And this is something actually that just kind of popped in my head. Over the course of, the 7 or now close to 8 years that I've been in business, we've had clients, like really large clients, like, Trend Micro and Symantec and all these like really big clients. And I've gotten to know some of the guys in these companies really well, and it's, they have even people like, the weirdest titles like chief hacking officers and it's like, like really cool jobs. Yeah. And one of the stories they told me, and this is something that I'd like to get your opinion on, because it now that we're moving into sort of that cloud-based hosted model, is this something that can, I guess, bridge this gap? They told me a story in which they went to one of the largest financial institutions in North America, and they swore up and down, this financial institution, there's no way we can be hacked. Our firewalls are like, our security, everything.
You should never claim that.
Well, yeah, but they hired these guys literally to say, hack our system. And so what this chief hacking officer did was he actually took whatever the code was, put it on a USB key, went out into the smoking area of this building, and stuck it on a bench and left. Because he knew that, okay, yes, penetrating, this system from the outside in is going to be really hard, but coming from the inside out. So person picked it up, went in, plugged it in. Now, we all know what happened. They got access. If this is something that's hosted, how does that gap, is there a bridge to that gap where it's I guess there's multiple layers of security at that point, so there's like what's inside the four walls and what's theoretically inside your four walls. So it'd be harder to get through multiple stages?
Well, so what that chief hacking officer did is what's called a social engineering attack. And really a social engineering attack is you stand in the middle of a mall and you say, I'll give you a chocolate bar if you tell me your password, and people will do it. Unfortunately, you can't avoid that.
That's too much.
They'll do that. So you can't prevent people from sharing information that they shouldn't. Mm-hmm. What you can do is get people educated about that. So the ability to have it hosted means that now you have a secure data center. You know that there's physical and internet security enabled. There's better care taken on firewalls, more expertise that's available at the data center than most organizations will have. So that already gives you a leg up. It means that you're less vulnerable to a technical attack. From a social engineering perspective, you could always provide somebody, one of your colleagues, with access to a file, and he or she could take it and email it when they should. But what we're seeing more and more is people are solving those sort of technical issues, and now they're focusing a little more on what we call information rights management. And that really means that you can stop a Word document or a PDF from being downloaded or printed. We work with a partner in Ottawa that has the ability to watermark. So when you download a copy, it has your name written across it and it says secret. And just by doing things like that, you're explaining to people, this is confidential information. You should probably keep your eye on that. And this is actually what they do in Hollywood, believe it or not, for scripts.
Absolutely. But, people are going to make mistakes. So you talk about social engineering, and I think that's right. But, people have shared confidential information with me over many, many decades now. And in that time, I've only ever leaked confidential information myself once. And it was by accident, and, I did it, and I realized I did it. And how long do you think, Nick and Scott, it took to get back to the person whose information I leaked and for him to get back to me?
Oh, I'm sure minutes.
Well, it wasn't minutes, but it was 24 hours.
Okay,
it was a day. Okay, you were on the right track there. Right. So social engineering is one part of it, but the other part of it is, and I think where you were going, Scott, is that cryptographic systems that are not tested in the public domain are usually pretty easy to hack. And I don't care if you're a Microsoft engineer or StoneShare CTO, which you are, Chief Technology Officer at StoneShare, you're going to know that. So, in terms of security, what have you done to give your clients the feeling that your systems are really truly robust and have been tested, not just by you guys, but by others?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do is, first of all, we do rely on the SharePoint platform. So Microsoft has white papers about the security that they apply. And so that already gives us a leg up. We're not actually writing custom code from scratch. We're relying on a well-tested, secure platform. We also work closely with the IT organizations in every customer. So it's actually a comfort factor for them that we are installing in their environment. They control the firewalls. They have security properly set up. We're not changing the world for them, and I think that that's a comfort factor there as well. One of the things that we're focusing on now as a business is we're spending a lot of time on what we call governance. So information management can be ungoverned. You don't really know what policies should be applied to it, how to manage this information, and so there's a lot of very common sense things that can be done. One of the services that we're starting to offer is managed operations and governance. So we're going to prepare security reports, audit reports, explaining that we can prove to anybody that so-and-so accessed this file and they downloaded this thing and so on. So I think organizations are a lot more comfortable when they see that sort of reporting as well.
Well, going back to the problem that I had, the one problem in 30 years that I had to apologize profusely, and the good news was I was actually forgiven, thank goodness. It was an act of omission as opposed to an act of commission. One of the things that, though, in terms of my own personal experience is back in the day when I was with the Ottawa Senators, our organization leaked so badly. I mean, we could have a senior management meeting, and I'd read about it in the Ottawa Sun the next day. So, no matter how much security you apply, probably most of the security breaches, not all of them obviously, but most of them are from mistakes that are happening in the organization.
Oh, absolutely right. And that's why I think from a technical perspective, security is obviously a concern and everybody has to focus on that. But really, yes, it's
the only way to really keep a secret, I think, is don't tell anyone anything. Keep it to yourself.
But even technology's changed that realm so much, though, right? Like even living in Ottawa, I mean, we've seen those headlines pop up where it was just like, probably 3-4 years ago where there was it the guy from CSIS or something that had like file boxes in the back of his car that got stolen. Even years ago, I look at when I was, I worked for a very, very large financial institution, and they were adamant about information security from a technical perspective. Yet every director every night would walk out with a briefcase full of confidential documents and credit card numbers and everything else, and throw it in the back of the car and stop at Max for milk and bread on the way home. And I think, as Nick, you said, is that idea where now things are it's that traceability factor, right? It's like we know that you accessed this, you downloaded it, you tried to email it. I think maybe even that alone changes the social dynamic of how information's shared.
I get that, but if you really want to know what an organization is doing, even a super secretive organization like CSIS, it's really not that hard to figure out. And the best people at deciphering some activity are Texas Hold'em players. You're laughing, but it's true, Nick. The fact is that a lot of information is conveyed by people in terms of the negative, what they're not doing, right? The Sherlock Holmes, the dog that didn't bark, right? So the idea that information is secure, is confidential, and will remain so indefinitely is probably not a valid premise to begin with. Having said that, you will not be forgiven. Organizations have terminated or self-terminated. Look at the value of Yahoo today compared to what it would have been, probably 6, 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. We see that despite the fact that I'm not a big proponent of confidentiality in the sense that I believe information should be free, having said all of that, you will not survive a major breach.
I agree, and actually I share the same attitude with information. I come from a world where, as a programmer from my background, right. I definitely wanted to share information, and I still feel that way. But right. You're absolutely right about that. And in fact, I think in Britain, the head of their MI5 was photographed coming out of number 1 Downing Street with a piece of paper that had, top secret on it in the first couple of paragraphs. And in that photo, when you blew it up, you could see the first few words, right. and that gentleman had to resign. So yes, yeah. We're in a situation
where we promote them, but
we do. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Yes.
But you brought up a really good point too, is that you focus very much on the whole concept of user adoption, right? So tell us about that. There's got to be, it's that old saying, right? It's like you can bring a horse to water, but you have to be really strong and determined to drown the son of a bitch. Is that?
Yeah. I think I've heard that. Never.
But the idea is that it goes far beyond. It's not necessarily if you build it doesn't necessarily mean they'll come, but it's from a user adoption perspective. I'm assuming that it's not just about the technology.
No, absolutely right. And I think one of StoneShare's strengths, or at least I hope it is that we really focus on the technical elements. I don't want to pretend that what we do and with SharePoint it's magic. There's obviously a lot of technical hurdles to solve, but at the end of the day, what we really try to focus on is how people are going to use this information, and that's really the key. And so this conversation about the security and so on, how are people using this information? What are they trying to keep? What are they trying to protect from other people? How do they make decisions about who gets to see this information?
For most organizations, it's the utility of the system that makes all. It's its usability. It's so important. For me, I have in Century 21 we have 6 offices. Explorum has 1. I have a home office, and I really have to have access to my files. I can't say to Scott, if I'm talking to Scott, well, it's on my home computer, it's on the one out in Carlson Place, or it's the one at Lincoln Fields, or wherever. And I think that's a problem that you solve. What's the user interface like?
So it varies, and that's a great question. So in your example, if you're on a mobile device, you want a very different experience getting at your files because you don't have a lot of real estate on the screen, right? So it has to look a certain way. You only want to press a couple of buttons.
So SharePoint can look it is a different experience on my iPhone than the iPad and then on my home desktop.
And that's what you want, absolutely. And so when you go through a browser, when you go on your desktop, it's a very different experience. And this is why we focus so much on user adoption, because you're learning different ways that need to be intuitive to manage the same information.
That's awesome. Okay, now, you mentioned that just before we went on air that you would share with people, where your revenues are at. Can you share that with folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been doubling basically every year. We're at $3.5 million on track this year. We're privately owned and debt-free, so we're really having a good time right now.
Oh, my God. Yeah. That's great. How many people work at your company?
Well, if you ask me that tomorrow, the number has probably changed because we're always looking to hire great people. So if anybody on the
where do they go to apply? I've looked, but you tell everybody.
Well, they can email me directly or info@stoneshare.com.
Okay.
And
spell it out.
Yeah, so info@stoneshare.com.
Spell StoneShare.
Okay, StoneShare.com.
All right, thank you.
We're always looking for great people.
And who are you looking for now, just so everybody can hear?
Well, actually, a lot of business analysts. So in terms of user adoption, we're now starting to have lots of conversations with people. So we're saying, what are your requirements? How do we turn that into a SharePoint solution for you?
Would that be a biz dev?
Yes, in many ways it would be. So somebody leaning less towards the technical and more towards, meeting people in the business, HR or legal.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a big growth area. Definitely, we're always looking for talented people who know SharePoint, so developers and architects for sure. And I think one of the things that's a challenge for us is finding people. We interview, my partner Keith and myself, probably 20 people for every person we hire. We're extremely picky.
Well, that's a great point. I think the number one, and I teach this stuff, and the number one decision that you make other than to start or join a company is who you hire.
Yeah. Absolutely right, and that has a factor on the company. So right now we're at I think 20 full-time employees. We work with up to 20 contractors. Some as far away as Australia. So we're following a little bit your model there, Scott, to some degree.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yes, already a convert. Yeah, we're always looking for more talent.
And where are you? I was Scott on my left. I was going to say where you're headquartered, but I'm not sure I should ask that question.
Well, we do actually have a headquarters.
Right.
So Ottawa, Gatineau, we're actually based on the Hull side of the river.
Okay.
So very close to the government, who are our primary clients for a number of years. And then we have a Toronto branch as well, which is based downtown. So growing very strongly there.
Now, in terms of your sales, $3.5 million, doubling every year, so it won't be long before you're bigger than Microsoft, right? Double every year.
Hopefully,
it won't take long.
Sure.
So what's the breakdown between public sector clients and private sector?
It's changed a lot over the last few months. Obviously, with the public sector in Ottawa, the federal government, there's been basically a spending freeze. And what we traditionally had was what you call March Madness in Ottawa, which really means by the end of the year, the budget had to be spent.
I thought it was basketball.
No, I always mention March Madness, and people wonder what that has to do with that.
I kind of do.
Yeah. If you live in Ottawa,
Ottawa is a very strange market. Yeah. So one of the things that we decided to focus more on is actually working in Toronto. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Absolutely.
Bringing some of that work back to Ottawa, which we've been doing, and it's probably down to about 50-50 public-private.
Yeah.
Timing-wise, that's worked out very well for us. We have some wonderful government clients, and we'll continue to have, I hope. But as things are a little quiet there and over the summer, we're picking up a lot of business in Toronto.
What's your ideal client there?
We're really looking for people who are willing to push the envelope in terms of content. So they want to try out mobile devices. They want to try out extranets. They want to try out new websites. They're not afraid of technology, but they're trying to solve business solutions. And what we sometimes find is people say, we need SharePoint, and you have to do something in SharePoint. Well, that's obviously what we do. That's all we do. But let's have a conversation first to see if this is actually going to solve your particular business challenge. And so my ideal client is somebody who can work with us as a partner, trust us and rely on us for our experience, not be afraid to tell us when they think they need to go, in another direction. But
let's talk about the type of business. Are we talking about somebody who's on Bay Street, a finance person, a finance organization? Are we talking about somebody who's in technology? We're talking about somebody running hotels. I mean, what kind of a client are you looking for?
Well, that's a great question, and to be honest, we haven't really focused on industry verticals yet. So really, with SharePoint, it's a rather strange beast. Everybody seems to want it. So we have
good
customers.
News.
Oh, it's great news for us. We're not sorry about that. We have customers in the military. We have customers in pharmaceuticals. We have healthcare customers. We have customers who are in real estate, in restaurants.
Wow.
We haven't yet differentiated, started to come up with solutions for those particular industries.
Well, autos in Toronto, the auto industry is big. Obviously, finance is big. It'd be nice to get, one of the major banks.
Oh, absolutely. And we do work with some of them. We work with some organizations in Toronto who are very large franchise restaurant organizations.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Super.
Good word of mouth, and that leads to more business. But I think as we mature as a company, we will probably start to focus on that.
So you were talking about, earlier is that, as Microsoft becomes cool again, and there is this huge, it seems, thrust in popularity as far as SharePoint goes. And it's like, what do you think the driving factor of that has been? Like, what, other than the fact that obviously, SharePoint is, Microsoft uses that sort of thin edge of the wedge, I think, as far as, it just ships with everything that we send out. But what exactly made SharePoint that go-to scenario for the last couple of years as opposed to a lot of the other companies?
Yeah, because there's a lot of competition in this space.
Yes, absolutely. I think SharePoint started as what you call a collaboration product. So really it was intended for small teams or for small projects. And in fact, when we work with our customers, we set up SharePoint sites for them to share information. So it was really a good way of replacing file shares. So when you take your files which are unorganized on a file share and you can move them into SharePoint, you get searchability, everybody can view it through the browser, you get the ability to view it on mobile devices. That's been hugely popular and something that was really lacking. And I know some of these other technologies do that to some degree, but the killer feature was that this is fully integrated with Office. So when users, when they head into their work, it's really hard to beat that.
Well, people, may not know this and focus on it because Microsoft's operating system, has been questioned a few times, a few million times. But their application software is really good stuff.
It is.
It is, and I mean, I don't care what anyone says. You use Word or PowerPoint or Excel. I mean, these are really good applications.
Yeah, and the thing with SharePoint that people really love, and we focus on this a lot, is they live inside their email, right? They live inside their Word documents and their PowerPoints and their email. So if you can extend that and make sure that they can find this information, save this information, share this information, you're golden. I
completely agree. One of the great frustrations I have is that the human-computer interface is so badly understood. I can actually find things on my computers. I actually can know where things are, and I do use Google Desktop Search.
Right.
So, for me, my integration with the computers that I use, the mobile devices that I use, is so intense that I can do really probably 3 times the work flow that I could have handled when I was your age, and Scott's and yours, Nick. And I watch some of my students who are in their 20s or even 30s, and I see how badly organized they are and how underutilized they are. Because for me, really, the computer and mobile devices that I use are the other half of my brain. Mm-hmm. And if you can make these things not only accessible everywhere, but searchable everywhere and documented in a way that people can actually retrieve their information, that is huge.
It is.
But you bring up a good point too, Bruce, is that we hear terminology like, consumerization of the desktop and those type of things, and it's I think it's that ongoing battle that companies face as well. Like, in fact, we were having this conversation the other day at Ibero, is that, I admit we're a pretty geeky company when it comes to our toys. Like, everybody has the newest.
You have a few toys. I've seen the new car.
Yeah.
But no, he's not going to say anything. Have you seen it yet?
No, not yet.
Oh my God, top end BMW goes like 230 some kilometers. Yeah. Not that he's ever done.
Not that he's done that. No,
but no, when it comes to let's get back to computers.
All right.
When it comes to the sort of computer, device scenario, is that I think like one of the issues that obviously companies are running up against now. Like, say for instance, you get a new job tomorrow. You walk into a company and they go, oh, well, here's a 4-year-old refurbished BlackBerry and a 5-year-old Dell, and you look at them like they've got a toaster on their head because you're like, I have a brand new iPhone 4S and a MacBook Pro or the latest HP or something, and you look at them and go, are you crazy? Like this, and
I can't get over that. When I talked to Tarek Zaid when he was on this show some time ago, and they're now part of Shopify, but one of the things that they did with their people, every new hire got the top end Mac and the top end tools, and we're giving people the what was it called, the quill pen, and but
as you said, right, is that people now, the way that they react to their mobile devices, and I mean, looking around the table here, we've got 5 or 6 of them just sitting on the table.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, as you said, is that your mobile devices are the other side of your brain.
They are.
Like, so whether it's your laptop, your iPhone, your iPad, your HP tablet, your BlackBerry, whatever that may be, is that something that you have to take into consideration? Like, so because I mean, there's such a plethora of devices, right? So when you talk about mobility, it's like, well, what exactly is mobility? Is mobility a laptop? Is it a PC-based laptop? Is it a Mac-based laptop? Is it an iPad, or is it a BlackBerry Playbook? Is it an iPhone? Is it a Android? Is it, so how does that get solved? Like, there's got to be, like, at times, do you pick the laptop of your choice and then bang your head against it? Because it's like there's got to be so many different aspects now that you have to solve within that sea of mobile devices within a company.
Well, actually, that's a great question, and the truth is it's all of those things. So our staff, we support, it's called Bring Your Own Device, but basically when they bring an Android or when they bring an iPhone or a Windows device, it's all supported. We give them access to the information that has to be done securely, and the way we do that is looking for add-ons to SharePoint. So there's about 10,000 of those at the present moment, and more are being built every day. So it's this massive ecosystem built on top of SharePoint, and one of those products, for example, there's a couple of vendors that provide apps that work across these different devices, and that's really key because your user experience should be different on an Android. It should be tailored for that. Then on a Windows device, it should be tailored for that than on your laptop.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. You're the CTO, Chief Technology Officer. Tell me about your own personal background and what got you to, from where you were a few years ago. Why did you buy into this company? You aren't an original founder. There must have been an original founder, right?
Yeah.
there was a point of origin, and you weren't there. A year later, you joined.
Yeah.
So tell us about that journey, and tell people more about yourself, Nick.
Sure. Well, thank you, Bruce. So I actually started life doing programming when it first came out. I was.
Well, you actually started life in your mother. So.
I did,
okay,
and then a few days later.
We don't have to go back there.
That's right. No. So flash forward a few days later, I did start programming, and it's always been a hobby of mine. So I was always sort of in this space.
As a teenager, you were just doing stuff like that?
Yeah, I was. And what was strange is that when I got to university, I took a history degree, which I think has been very beneficial to my career. So,
no way.
Yeah, research and analysis and communication has been very, very important. And it's
yeah, you
can
communicate. We know that already.
Oh, thank you. So far, so good. And one of the things that happened when I got out of university is I looked around and I said, well, what do I want to do?
Right.
By good luck, I got into ITI.
How old you are?
I'm 36 as of yesterday, actually.
No. Now, I think he looks about 28.
I do a little bit, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that boyish smile.
And the bowl cut, yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Okay, so keep going.
So I actually have more experience than is apparent, because when I got out of university, I started doing websites. When they first came out, started building those.
Well, now, what year would that have been?
That was around, I got out of high school in 1995 and built my first website then, back when everybody was learning.
I beat you.
You did, okay.
I put up my first website. Now, they're really primitive.
94?
No, in 92.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, Rob Hall from Momentous, he runs Zip.ca and a few other businesses here in Ottawa, was a young guy then, and I wasn't young, but I was younger.
Okay.
And, he showed me a few things, and I thought, oh, this is cool. And it took me a while to figure out the Internet, but I built an old site of mine, which I just revamped after 20 years, and it was live at the end of 92, so it's Methuselah in Internet years.
So we were probably taking notes from you.
I don't think so. Oh, my God, my sites are horrible. But anyway, keep going.
Well, we learned as we went.
So 95, you were...
95, yeah.
That's early.
Yeah, and then started taking that history degree, and then in 1999, I was exiting this ITI, this technical college in Ottawa. Okay. And by very good luck, I was placed with a company in New Jersey and New York. So I actually moved down to the States for a year, worked as a Java programmer during the dot-com boom.
Wow.
And then after that, I moved back to...
What happened to that?
Well, September 11th, actually. So I moved back a couple of days later at the end of my contract. And
it just was the time to...
It was the time. So my contract was coming to an end. The company was starting to run into difficulties, and then September 11th occurred. So I moved back to Canada. I got a job in the government. Yeah, it was very difficult.
You got a job in the government?
I did. I worked.
How long did that last?
It was about 5 years. I took a year off in the middle of it to go to London. I wanted to live there for a little while. And by very good luck in the government, I was working at Parks Canada. They were included in the Microsoft's early version of SharePoint 2007.
Okay.
So that's where I actually started learning SharePoint, and I decided I wanted to try new things. So I left and looked around, and in very short order managed to land a job in Australia.
Whereabouts in Oz were you?
I was in Sydney for a couple of years.
Couple of years. Yeah. I lived there for 4 years.
Okay, yeah, fantastic.
I went to the University of New South Wales where I got a Master of Engineering Science degree.
Okay.
And worked for the New South Wales government back in the day.
Okay, I did a lot of consulting for them. I was with a company called Dimension Data Australia, which is a big hardware provider, really. I think they did telecom.
Great city.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So we were on the north side of the city.
Whereabouts on the north side?
We were in Cremorne, so Neutral Bay, right just above the bridge.
Really nice.
What about yourself?
We were in Chatswood, and I lived in a place called Forestville, which is very close to the best surfing beach in North Sydney called North Narrabeen.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I learned how to surf.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, I've always wanted to learn how to surf. I'm ashamed to say I did not pick that up.
Oh, my God. Well, you could broadly surf. Anybody can do that.
Well, we did a bit of that.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so we had a great time there. I was there with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and we decided that I really wanted to start a company. So I wanted to come back to Canada.
Right.
And we had a web design firm sort of on the side.
Sure.
So when we came back, I was doing SharePoint consulting in Canada. And my business partner, my current business partner, Keith Carter, had reached out to me on LinkedIn.
Right.
We hadn't met before.
Now, what year was this on LinkedIn?
This was 4 years ago now, I guess. Yeah.
So it would have been 07? So 5 years, really.
That's right.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, LinkedIn, I'm liking LinkedIn a lot more.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It is really something.
As long as the mobile interface, not the desktop interface.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But I mean, it's pretty clunky, but I like what they're doing.
Well, it's a great network, and so he was able to find out about me, and he reached out to me, and I thought he was actually looking for SharePoint consulting services. He had just moved from Procom. He bought into the company from the original founders.
Right.
So we have a partner from those days, Pierre Cleroux, who's still involved.
Okay.
And Keith Carter decided to buy in, and he and Pierre were looking around for somebody who could complement them on the technical side.
That was you.
That was me, luckily. So they reached out on LinkedIn. Keith is a very convincing gentleman. He said, I'd like you to be my partner. I said no. I was happy with my own thing. About 30 minutes later, I said maybe, and 30 minutes after that, I said okay.
No way.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to say a pause on 24 hours, 48 hours. You just knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I did, because I was always interested in sort of working for a company that, had an opportunity to really drive it and be on the leading edge of something. I felt that StoneShare had the potential to do that. I felt like I had good partners, and there were some good people working there already, so it was an easy jump to make.
So how big can StoneShare get?
Well, what's interesting is that we're focusing less and less on the technical aspects of SharePoint. It's something that we sort of do behind the scenes. And so the reality is there's no limit to our growth, because we're trying to solve big problems.
Business.
I'm sure we can be. There are a lot of challenges out there managing information. If we did nothing but that would keep us going for many years. And there's other things that are becoming more exciting, like social integration with SharePoint, the ability to send tweets and do blogging and so on is becoming very popular. Mobile devices are becoming very popular. Obviously, the conversation we're having around security, people are trying to understand the space. There are issues with hosting. They need to understand where their data is being stored, and these are all things that we can help them with. So I don't think there's any limit.
Wow. Okay. So that brings us to the next question, which is, there's still two chairs in heaven waiting for the first two partners to get there and still like each other. How are you guys? There's three of you, right? Keith and Pierre and yourself. How are you guys getting along? How are you managing that aspect?
Well, I think it's really important to have a partner. I mean, you have to be really committed to an organization like this, and I think with our success, we work really long hours. You have to get along. We don't always agree on everything, but I like to say that Keith and I are sort of two halves of the same brain. So he handles very much the staffing and procurement side. He's got some great business strategies. He's really good on the numbers, and I can handle the technical side, and I have really good relationships with people in the SharePoint community. I have a strong vision for where SharePoint is going and how we can get there. So there's been no friction. We've worked very well alongside each other. I certainly couldn't have done this without him, and we have Pierre backing us up all the way. So it's been a very great partnership.
Well, I have to ask you this question, and it's kind of a trick question coming from me. What's the exit strategy?
Well, we're always looking to, provide value for our customers. And I think as we start to provide better services and, possibly some products that we can create, we become, possibly attractive to organizations. The SharePoint market right now is consolidating. So there are a number of big firms such as Rackspace who are buying SharePoint consulting firms. There's always that possibility. To be honest, it's not something we're really focused on right now because we see so much potential and there's so many things that we want to try. But obviously, as business owners, you're always focused on at least that possibility. So, I mean, it may be the case that over the next year or two, as SharePoint market starts to consolidate, we'll have somebody knocking on our door interested in, owning part of StoneShare or all of it. We're certainly open to those sort of, initiatives or offers. It's not something that we're actively looking for right now.
Yeah, because one of the things that I talk a lot about is build and hold as opposed to build and sell.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it might have been a bit of a curveball thrown at you. Just that a lot of people are building companies to sell as opposed to building companies to build them and hold them.
Yeah.
And my sense of it is that might be a mistaken strategy in many cases because at the end of the day, many people think that, I started one business, I can start 10.
Right.
Well, starting a business other than StoneShare, could be, quite a different experience, a different result, not necessarily as good a result as you're having now. And it goes back to an old story I tell, which was a sign-making company that grew very fast and was having a lot of success. And the guy who started it was a former butcher. And, as a man in his 20s, he was already getting arthritis in his hands. Butchers work in the cold, damp environment. And he decided he was going to be a sign maker. Mm-hmm. And so he didn't know anything about computers. He couldn't even turn one on, but he taught himself how to use a computer-controlled machine and make signs, primitive though they were. But one thing he could do is he could sell. And so he built a very successful business, and he came to see me. He was very excited years later, and he said, Bruce, guess what? I got an offer from a big company to buy my sign company for $2 million. Imagine me, a butcher, making, $14 an hour with $2 million. Wow, that's great. Won't mention his name. And I said, so you're going to pay a little bit of tax on it? Oh, yeah, a few $100,000, but I'll be left with, $1.6 million. I said, you know what the interest rates are on Treasury bills now or GICs? No. I said, around 2.5%. And make it easy, let's say it's 3%. And so you put $1.6 million in the bank, you think, well, that's a lot of money, and you get 3% on it, you get $48,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I said to him, Bill, not his real name, I said, Bill, what are you taking out of the business yourself? And Bill says to me, well, I don't know, about $240,000 for myself. I said, doesn't your wife work in the business? Well, yeah, actually she does. She does her books. What do you give her? Well, we give her another $80K. Oh, okay, that's $320,000 a year. And what about that nice truck you have outside, the F-150? He said, well, yeah, actually the company pays for that. And we went on, and I said, okay, so you're taking home about $350,000 of value for your family every year from this company that you created. And in addition to that, you make it, oh, yes, we make money. How much money? Oh, we're making about $200,000 to $300,000 in the business. Who gets that? So, well, I spend it on, a new boom truck, or I spend it on a new
because obviously people are sometimes located in customer sites or in different cities, or may not be, maybe working from as far away as Australia. So some of the technologies that we use, like SharePoint, we actually help us chat with these people, make them feel like, they're integrated, and I think that really helps as well.
Excellent. Yeah. Because I know that Keith was saying, just as, as much as no one's met Keith, because he's not here today, I know that he is, overly picky about the people that you hire. And I know that he was saying that, aside from obviously the technical aspects, and I think this is something that, I definitely agree with and we have in common, is that the people that you hire for a company and even from that entrepreneurial perspective is that, there's that saying, it's like no one will ever work as hard as the business owner, right? Because they have a different kind of viewpoint and attitude of it. But I know that Keith was saying that it's like you're really, really picky. Even you mentioned this, like for every, one person that you hire, you've interviewed like, over 20 people.
Yeah.
What are the personality traits that you're looking for? Because I'm getting the feeling that it's not even so much about the technical knowledge, because it's like any company. I mean, you have a very specific way of doing things as long as people are smart enough to learn that.
Yeah.
But what exactly do you look for in that kind of scenario as far as the people that you hire, aside from education, technical experience?
Absolutely. So they obviously have to have an aptitude for technology in the sense that they're willing to learn and they're willing to try things. That's definitely what we have and what we're looking for. That's important. The ability to embrace change is a big one, because obviously, as a company that's constantly growing, things are changing and the technology itself is changing, so people have to be willing to accept that. Those are really key points, and self-learning is important as well, because we don't have the answers to everything. We're learning things with our customers, and so we need people who are smart enough to take the ball and run with it. And I think above all, they have to be friendly and easygoing, because they represent StoneShare and they have to work with people. They have to ask for requirements and figure out how to make things work. If you care about people and you really want to make sure that they're happy with the result, then that'll flow through to the other things like technical aptitude and so on.
I have a question for you. It's completely off topic in a way,
sure.
But we have the CTO from StoneShare here, so I think I'll ask him anyway.
Okay.
What's going to happen to RIM?
I actually have faith in RIM, and here's why. 50% of the market replaces their mobile devices and tablets every year anyway. So if RIM executes really well on the next version of their operating system and the next devices, which I think they could, they'll be right back in the game. So I think it's too early to say one way or the other, but I haven't given up on RIM, and I don't think other people should as well.
Well, the QNX operating system is the real deal. I mean, it was developed, I think, right here in Ottawa.
It was, yeah.
And you can operate a Boeing or Airbus on the system. It's not going to it's not going to crash, so to speak.
Yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? I don't think people realize what QNX, if they even exist, or what they do.
Oh my God!
If you drive any vehicle at all that has any kind of heads-up display, navigation, anything, chances are it was developed by QNX.
Absolutely.
So there's so much more that they do than just
that was the best acquisition by a tech company in a while.
Absolutely.
When RIM bought QNX, Ottawa's basically QNX. It was about $110 or $120 million purchase. And it was a good purchase, but the fact that RIM has now postponed the launch of their new platform and their new phones till next year is just, from a business point of view, that's a killer.
Well, I think that's great, actually, and here's why.
You think it's great?
Yes,
really?
they do.
Holy smokes!
They have to execute.
Nobody else agrees with
I know that, but they have to execute on this, and if they do execute on this, they'll be right back in the game. And if they don't, it doesn't matter how late it is anyway. One of the things that they're doing, according to my understanding, is that they are splitting the data that's stored on these mobile devices into personal information and corporate information. And one of the key challenges that we deal with right now is when you roll in there with your bring your own device, I cannot wipe your computer if it gets stolen or lost, even if you sign an agreement with me saying that's okay. with my staff, do I provide them with access to this information or not? I don't know. I'm taking a chance. But if RIM has solved that problem, if they execute really well, if they have a wonderful operating system, yes, it's really difficult for them right now, but a month or two later, if they come back on the market, people are going to buy.
Because one of the things that kind of struck me is that, like, I know I was kind of slamming my head against the desk when I heard this, is that if you look at when the playbook was released, and they delayed the playbook till after the Christmas rush, when at the exact same time Apple had just released the latest version of the iPad. We talk about that whole consumerization of the desktop and like the
bring your own device.
Yeah, and it's half business, half toy, right? And that's people like it. But you look at it, again, we talk about thin edge of the wedge, right? Is that if your husband or wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, mom, dad, whatever, buy you an iPad for Christmas, over the Christmas holidays it will be, hey, check out, I downloaded Angry Birds and I'm on Facebook, and then, oh wait, but I can take it to work and I just downloaded either the Apple stuff or the Microsoft stuff or whatever you can get for it, different business apps, Dropbox, all these type of things. That's where it starts to integrate into the business thing. But it's like because BlackBerry missed that,
they missed it.
The playbook kind of went, down it went just because it wasn't, that user adoption wasn't there from a physical perspective. But
I think where we're going with this is that the dividing line between personal and business is blurred. And I'm okay with that. I mean, there are lots of organizations say, we're going to deny Facebook to our employees. But how important is Facebook to integrate, and LinkedIn, of course, to integrate into what you do with Twitter as well? And I think that's a huge mistake. So I think where you're going, Nick, and your company's going by integrating these social media tools is the right way.
But I think you got to have faith. The dividing line, right, is that I think what's interesting about SharePoint and what StoneShare is doing is that you are sort of drawing a line in the sand, though, saying this is corporate, this is personal, which is, I think, really where it should be going. And then the social adoption of that is perhaps a better understanding from the individual's perspective of what's meant to remain corporate and what's meant to be social.
And I think that's the key. So having that sort of understanding is what we get to.
All right. So I have one kind of almost last question for you before we, finish the show. We got a couple minutes left here. You have an office in Ottawa, you have one in Toronto, and you have some people as far away as Australia. If you go to a concert, the closer you are to the stage, the more exciting it is, as a general rule, right?
Sure.
The further away, the less exciting it is. How do you make it exciting, interesting for people in Toronto or Sydney?
Yeah, that's a great question, and to be honest, it is a challenge. So one of the things that we've done is partner has moved to Toronto so that we have ownership. Yes, wow. We've got ownership in both places. I mean, he comes back to Ottawa, obviously, but he spends a lot of his time there. And I think that helps because people definitely feel more engaged in Toronto. But yeah, these social tools really help as well because now we can chat with people who are on the other side of the planet, and that's actually key.
And so you keep people working effectively and efficiently, as much as Scott at iVero is able to keep people who, because whether you're scattered in 7 and 12 home offices across Ottawa, and some of your people are not in Ottawa, Scott, I think.
No, everybody.
Everybody's in Ottawa, but all in home offices, right? Okay, so whether you're scattered in 12 home offices across Ottawa or you're scattered, it really doesn't matter anymore, right? The world has become one.
Yeah.
So we're almost done now. How much time do we have left? 30 seconds. So Scott, it's time for us to pay for this show. We have 2 sponsors I'd like to mention. Fortress is an RSP-eligible syndicate mortgage product that allows the consumer to invest directly in proven Canadian real estate. And that means that you get about a 12% return instead of 2%. And then we have AltaView Financial Group who helped us with this show. It's a firm specializing in alternative investments. I'd like to thank my co-host, Scott Williams.
Thank you.
And, of course, Nick Kellet from StoneShare. It's been great spending time with you.
Well, thank you both for the opportunity. I loved it.
We really had a good time, and we'll make sure that everybody will share the link with you. Thanks again.